All right, we are back. Another episode of the GYGB War Report Show. I'm your co-host Roberto Flack. My man R.O. Diggity. What's going on? And we got a special guest, a friend of the show, been here before. Azim Spicer. What's goody, man? What's good?
Hey, man, how y'all doing?
Lots to discuss, man.
Boxing industry's hot right now.
Woo-wee. We got obviously big fight this weekend at AT&T.
Yep.
We got the return of Errol Spence Jr. Following the car accident, 14-month layoff in against Danny Garcia, a fight that we were going to see early this year before everything broke down. But looking forward to that, man. But let's just jump right into it, man. Well, RD, I'll hand it off to you, man. So
yeah. So Ash and I, we go way back, childhood friends.
Of course.
Very, very close to his family. This guy's a brother, a brother to me. So I'm very happy to have him on the show. And it's so crazy. I wish we used Zoom, but it was kind of like surreal to see his name during the credits at the end of the show. I kind of like lost my mind. I forgot to show my mom about it. But what's so interesting was I'm gonna go. Let's put the car in reverse because Ashim and I, we grew up together, and I have to ask him two questions before we start. Number one, Big Daddy Kane or Rakim, if you putting matches together,
man.
Here we go, man.
I can't call that one, man. I can't call that one. That's a tough one, man.
If you had 25, if you had $16 in your pocket and you had to buy a CD, which one you buying first?
Rakim.
Oh, there you go.
You just had a more organized album, The theme of the album was tight. I love Big Daddy Kane. He's great. But I mean, Rakim, you're gonna get that science. You're gonna get all that, man. It's just I gotta go with Rock.
Right. I think that was the consensus for a lot of people. And me, I'm a Big Daddy Kane fan, but I can dig it. All right, my next question. Do we bench Carson Wentz and start Jalen Hurts right now?
Yes.
Do we
have a quarterback problem in Philadelphia, and it started with Carson Wentz. A lot could be because, the line broken down, the players around him, he doesn't have confidence. All that goes to it. But at the end of the day, he's not making anything happen. And he's just doing things that I don't think a 5-year quarterback should be doing.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of people were saying, this is his first real full season, and we really getting to see who Carson Wentz really is because he never really had a full, healthy season, if you will.
No. I don't think we win the Super Bowl that year if he plays in the playoffs. I believe the game would have slowed down a bit and he would have made a mistake or here and there. He definitely could have went blow to blow with Tom Brady like that, like Nick Foles did at the Super Bowl. I'm just saying. So I think it would have been better for him had he just lost in the playoffs, come back, no Nick Foles win the Super Bowl, learns. But now that Nick Foles won the Super Bowl, I just think he's mentally done. He's mentally defeated, and it's too much to overcome. He has to overcome that. He got to overcome Hurts now on the bench. It's too much to overcome, and I just don't think he's going to be successful here. I just don't. I think it's over. If I'm the Eagles, bench him, play Hurts, see what you have. If I don't like what I see in Hurts, I'm drafting a quarterback with these picks and tanking for the rest of the year because we'll never get a better chance.
So I guess my next question is, would you then get rid of our coach?
I don't like a lot of what Doug's doing too, but I think he's handcuffed. I want to start with Howie Roseman, you know what I mean? Because that's the guy that's constantly in people's ears talking about he's arguing with Zach Ertz before games and shit about contracts and shit. He's forcing people to play. He's getting rid of players. He's letting Jim Schwartz have too much control. I would like to see them gut that from the beginning and let Doug have the people around him to succeed. Just do it like that. I think Doug Peterson is an aggressive coach, and if you're an accurate quarterback, you can win with him. But if you're erratic like Carson Wentz and you overreact to pressure and you can't throw simple reads, you're not going to convert the fourth downs that he's trying to do. You're just not. So I think this problem starts with Carson Wentz and the players that Howie Roseman has surrounded him with. So I would just see that. He should be the first to go. At least he should go back to just doing contract numbers.
Right.
You know,
Right.
He should not be picking football players.
Now, it's funny. We can see the transition. So, Oz and I, we grew up funny. Talked boxing growing up. I mean, from 5th grade, talked basketball, football, and these were,
Mostly boxing, though.
Boxing, yup. But here's the thing. So, since you transitioned, I wore my shirt. I think it's appropriate. Look,
There you
Raw
go.
Nights I performed like Mike. Which one? Anyone? Tyson, Jordan, Jackson. So it's crazy because this weekend we had something that was great. And I was telling somebody how, you know, they're like, oh, you just support this because this is like, you know, Ash is your brother. I'm like, well, yeah, that's one thing. But you got to remember, before there was me, like Ash and I had a bond before all this stuff happened. I said, Mike Tyson was our culture.
Sure was.
And he's still, and if you think about it, he still is the culture. So like you look at people like Tank Davis that has over 1 million followers and he posts, you know, I'm Junior Mike Tyson, I'm Mike Tyson Jr. All that does is it make people go to YouTube, log on, and they know, everybody knows from whatever age, race, creed, religion, they know who Mike Tyson is. And they still love Mike Tyson. So what's so crazy is that we had a great event this weekend, which obviously was, you were a huge, played a huge part in it that people don't know. And I just wanted you to talk about it, like, you know, just, you know, what was the guts behind putting that together? Like, you know, talk about that, you know, in terms of getting people together. I know one point in time, people were talking about Mike was supposed to fight this, he's supposed to fight that. First, it was just, okay, he lost weight to stay in shape. Then it was, he's supposed to fight Tarver, he's supposed to fight Evander. Then he's supposed to fight this person, that person. Just tell me how that all, you know, in a short little convo, how that all kind of evolved and what happened.
Sure. First of all, I like Tank Davis. You mentioned Tank Davis. I like Tank Davis a lot. I think he's it's all up to him. You know what I mean? It's all up to him. You know what I mean? If he can control himself and stay focused, and I love what Floyd's doing with him as well, mentoring him. If they could keep that bond, he could stay clean like Floyd did, without the drugs, the alcohol, and all that stuff, and he's gonna be dangerous. He's already dangerous, but he'll be dangerous for a long time. But yeah, back to the fight and how it all came about. You know, Mike was starting to get in shape, and you know, one day that you know, he'd be hanging out over with my partner Rob Hickman at Tyson Ranch and at Rob Hickman's house. And you know, he'd be having a bunch of UFC guys and trainers, and he had that trainer Raphael that trained the famous UFC. And out of the blue, Mike just was like, yo, man, I want to hit the mitts, you know, let me hit the mitts with you. And that's where it started. As far as the actual business and everything is, I got a weird call from Bob Sapp, you know, former UFC or MMA fighter. I love Bob Sapp, by the way. And he was like calling me with this huge offer. It was like, man, they got like 20 million for me, and they got like 20 million for Mike. And I was like, whoa. That's already like, it can't be that. Like, you know, you're not Mike. You know, we can't do 50-50. We got to work that out. But I thought it was nonsense. You know what I mean? To be honest with you. So when I brought the idea to Mike, you know, Mike was like, man, nah, man, I didn't want to do no stuff like that. I said, exactly. You know what I mean? I said, but they're talking big numbers. So, you know what I mean? I got to tell you what they're talking. He said, well, what they talking? I said, they talking about 20 million for you. He said, who do they want me to fight? And I told him, Bob Sapp. And he started laughing hysterically. He said, I know Bob. He said, okay. So him and Bob talked, and, you know, it was working, you know. But, you know, I just couldn't get the deal done with these guys because at the end of the day, they just couldn't produce what I needed to get done. You know, I wanted all that. You know what I mean? It had to be like before Mike landed, all that had to be in his account waiting. You know what I mean? It couldn't be no, good fight, Mike. We'll get you on the back end. No, 20 million, whatever. So that didn't happen. So from there, Mike really wanted to do something. So, I started talking to this guy, Johnny Ryan, I was doing some business with, who's in business with Sophie Watts over there with Errol's Innovations. And they run that film studio, XTX, that did the Hustler movie with J-Lo and Bad Moms, to name a few. And he was like, yo, I think Sophie would be interested in this. I said, all right. So we took her to Sophie, and she was. And from there, it just took it to a whole nother level. You know what I mean? We had to find an opponent. We talked to Tyson Fury, talked to Evander Holyfield. But, when you're dealing with these guys and these boxing guys and these promoters, they're trying to do it the old way. I told her from the jump, I said, listen, these are retired fighters. Enough people's been in their pockets before. We're doing this different. We're giving them the bag. You know what I mean? They're going to get the money. They break off whoever they want, but it ain't going to be this whole promoter hide everything and show you, give you this, but hide everything else. It ain't going to be that. So we didn't want to, I just couldn't see a promoter right now that was representing one of the fighters that Mike wanted that would be willing to do this, you know what I'm saying? Because all the promoters I talk to, they always want to control it, you know what I mean? Especially the big ones. This wasn't controlled. This was just 50-50 for Mike, fighter, share the back end with him, and it was a beautiful thing, and then most of the money's going to be for charity, right? So out of the blue, Roy Jones called me, right? After the other two fell out, Roy Jones called me, and I don't recall ever speaking to Roy, but he called me like he knew me. He's like, what's up? He said my name and everything. And I obviously know him. I knew who he is. And it felt like I was talking to my cousin or something. And he's like, yo, is it true Mike's going to fight? I said, yeah, he's serious about it. He said, seriously? He said, man, well, I'm interested. I said, all right. So I put him on the phone and let him talk to Mike. And, that history was made. They decided to do it. And after the fight, I don't know if you saw the post-fight comments, but Mike actually said that Roy Jones is the only person willing to fight him.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
it was hard to get. It was hard to get someone to fight him just because I couldn't get past the people that was doing the business for them guys. You know what I'm saying? And I say to this day, we gave them a straight, fair deal. You know what I mean? That they would have been very happy right now. You know what I mean? Because I don't know if y'all know, but we broke the pay-per-view pre-sale records for
all that.
Yeah. So and the funny thing is, it's just a numbers game. If you take the numbers, the past three fights, the Charlo card, right, that did about 125,000 buys, right? Tank card did about 200 something thousand, and the last Spence card did about another couple 100,000. Mike did better than all those combined in pre-sales.
That's crazy.
And what's that to say? Those are all young pay-per-view guys just starting pay-per-view, right? So it's not a slight against them. They're all great fighters. You know what I mean? Every one of those guys on them pay-per-view cards are great fighters, right? Mm-hmm. But what is it? Why is it that a retired fighter can fight another retired fighter where everyone was hating on the rules and trying to blast it like it wasn't going to be anything? It was going to be terrible. Let's not forget that everybody was clowning us. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I saw them on Twitter. I got them all. Mm-hmm. I canceled one dude from Yahoo who wanted to try to get a post interview with Mike. I was like, I reminded him about his tweet. Mm-hmm. You remember this tweet? How you said this was the worst 5 days before the event. You said this was the worst promoted event in boxing history. And I've been doing boxing for 30 years. That's what this dude said. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, what leads people to say this? Is it promoters paying or talking to reporters to get their agenda across? Because I know it's promoters calling the boxing commission meddling in this fight, trying to start stuff and trying to, you know what I mean? What's that about? You know what I mean? Because we're not working with you guys. You know what I mean? We're trying to give it to the fighters. You know what I mean? We're trying to do this differently. So, I mean, that's just kind of the nonsense that we dealt with the whole way. I had to because what producing is what? Putting out fires, right? That's what producing is. Everything I produce is always putting out fucking problems or fires. You know what I mean? That's what it is. Whole time we putting out fires, putting out this, calming people down. Our PR team will go crazy when they see these people talking about the rules and it's no knockouts allowed and it's not going to be a fight and you know what I mean? I wouldn't pay for this, all that nonsense. Meanwhile, during that whole time, we had broke the records for pre-sales. So I mean, and the event, the production of it speaks for itself. You know what I mean? I'm not new.
And it does. And I'm gonna tell you something. The one thing I thought about when you did this, obviously, I'm biased because number one, we're blood brothers, but number two, you know me, Ash. We grown up. We were big Mike Tyson fans.
Huge.
So huge. But what was crazy was I reminded people on the internet. I don't know if you remember, Ash. I think it was our sophomore or junior year where Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played Dr. J at the Trump Plaza. Remember? They played 1-on-1 for charity, and what happened was it was the same thing. Everybody was like, well, why are these two dudes playing each other? But everybody went to Atlantic City to watch these guys play 1-on-1. And it was so crazy. And I said, this is actually a brilliant idea because what it does is, how many times do we see, the people we grew up with, Ash, and they like, you know what, they still play in 40 and over leagues. And we like, Dad, we still want to see them play. Or they play like 50 and older leagues and they're still playing. And obviously with somebody like Mike Tyson, he still showed this weekend how he's still relevant, even retired. And that's really what it was. It was just the fact that he's such a big part of the hip hop culture, such a big part of the boxing culture now and today. Now he got some other things that you helped him do in terms of Tyson Ranch, Hot Box that we always talk about, that jealousy kicks in because what people don't understand is while they're still jealous, what they don't realize is Mike Tyson is so relevant. He brought casuals to boxing, where most of those fans we were losing in MMA, no disrespect to MMA, he actually brought a lot of fans. He brought the Tank Davis fans, those young fans. He brought a lot of us that followed him a lot. He brought a lot of casual fans to watch boxing this weekend. And it just, you don't realize, Ash, like how big of a production that was.
No, I do. You know why? Because I'm watching my Twitter feed and I'm seeing like Congresswoman from Detroit. What's her name? Omar. I forget her name. The Congresswoman from Detroit, the Muslim lady.
Yep.
She's tweeting about the fight. Oprah's tweeting about the fight. You know what I'm saying? Everybody that knows me tweeted me about this fight or texted me about this fight in some way. I mean, but listen, I wasn't surprised that the numbers would be good because it's Mike. What I was surprised about was how much hate it was getting from the boxing's insiders, And they have retracted their statements and they've been talking about it glowingly, been getting great reviews. And, like I said, the work speaks for itself. But I thought journalism was like, let's wait and see before we start judging. Let the event come out and then critique it. That's fair game, The event wasn't perfect. There's some things that I like to tweak. Like for one, I think there was too much music. It was too much music, too long. I want to get that tighter for the next one. Boom, boom, boom. I just want to fill the gaps in the boring parts of boxing where we're waiting for people in the dressing room, and instead of overhearing the commentary, put a little more entertainment. And tell me what, did y'all like Snoop Dogg?
I liked him as a commentator, man. That was just me. I loved him as a commentator.
I loved him as a commentator.
It was different. It was a different approach, man. I mean, we're as boxing fans, we're so used to, the Lampleys of the world and everything, and it's we become accustomed to it. But it was, I mean, at the end of the day, man, like it isn't. There is an entertainment aspect to it, and even the most hardcore fans had to be sitting there like, enjoying the commentary because it wasn't like Snoop was just being like extra foolish. I mean, there was things he was saying that I was like, oh, he watches boxing. You know what I'm saying? So it
You know what
wasn't like
it sounded like us sitting on the couch talking and watching it.
yeah.
You
right,
know,
right.
that's what it sounded like. Because he was
Yeah.
like, "Come on, Roy, get out of there, Roy, get out of there, shit, Roy, get out of there, Roy." I mean, that was you
Yeah.
know, that was amazing. And I mean, the Snoop Dogg. I mean, and not to mention he filled in for Lil Wayne because Lil Wayne dropped out because he didn't want to take a COVID test. You know what I'm saying?
Oh wow.
Yeah, the restrictions was nuts. I mean, the COVID restriction was nuts. I watched the fight in the dressing room, in Mike's dressing room. You know, we
Wow.
all had to watch it in there. You know what I'm saying? And then as soon as a fighter was done, they had to leave. You know, the fighters couldn't just hang around and watch the fight. They had to leave. Artist was done, they had to leave. You know what I mean? As soon as you're done, you're gone. So, you know, the COVID stuff was nuts, and to be able to do this during the pandemic was special. But it was just something that we was preparing for because we had to adapt early,
Right.
you know what I mean, and just start figuring out how to get this done. But
Yeah.
what I took out of the fight the most is how impressed I was with Mike. Mike looked fresh. You know, he was in there throwing combinations. You know, obviously he wanted to go 8 rounds. That was his goal. He wanted to go the full 8. You know what I mean? You know, Cuss used to always tease him. He said, "Yo, you're not fighting. You're knocking people out. That's easy. You're a knockout artist. This is fighting. Watch this guy fight. This is fighting. Fight." So Cuss wanted him to learn how the style Cuss did for Mike was to teach him how to beat people that emulated Muhammad Ali's style. That's why if you look, his whole style was to go underneath the jab. Jab, you go underneath it, boom, boom, body, and come underneath with the jaw. So, and Mike said that when I first talked to him about this, I was like, do you think you can go in there and like not throw punches with power, but with accurate and just speed, you know what I mean? And outpoint somebody. He said he could. So he went in there and proved it. You know, he outpointed, outboxed Roy Jones. You know what I'm saying? And I think he can outbox and outpoint a lot of boxers. You know, the plan is, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
The plan is to keep doing exhibition fights, right?
Yep.
It's not to test them. It's not to have them fighting for a belt or for competition on that level or to put them in with some young lion that's going to try to get a name off of him. It's not that. It's exhibition. It's showing the beauty and the art of boxing at this age. That's why we took it down from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. And we were worried about that, but I looked at it and it didn't feel too bad. It felt that you just got to get to it quicker. You know what I mean? You got 2 minutes and you're fresh. And that 1 minute takes away from the risk of an older fighter getting tired. And you know, when you get tired, that's when you can get hurt. When you slack off a little bit, you don't do what you should do exactly the same way. You don't guard, you don't protect, you don't roll out. That's when you could get hurt. And I think that 1 minute is really helpful for that. So it's something that we're going to talk about, you know, for our next event.
And that's cool because one thing. Go ahead, Roberto.
No. Well, I was just gonna say. I mean, you answered my own question that I was gonna ask is as far as just this is gonna happen again. You know, obviously not to put any names out there, but like that is the plan then.
Absolutely, Mike is excited. I talked to him earlier today during our executive call with the other partners of Legends Only League, and we was just mapping out the game plan. And right now we're looking to March. You know what I mean? We're looking at some dates in March, maybe April, but definitely March. We're looking at some dates, and we're looking to fill it out with some mega fights, mega big legends. I mean, we want to take this event that we did and take it up another level, if you can believe that, with bigger legends along with Mike, bigger artists, you know, bigger show, and you know, it's probably going to be out of the country, just because it's just easier to get things done. I mean, And maybe since, we're pretty much the capital of the pandemic in the United States, we'll have a chance to maybe go somewhere where we could actually have a crowd.
That makes sense.
Well, the one thing I was going to ask you, Ash, is you talked about Legends, your Legends League, and
Legends
and
Only
how,
League.
Legends Only League, and how obviously I thought it was a catchy name. Did you guys ever think about venturing into other sports as well?
Yes, that's exactly the plan. We've been talking to a lot of big legends in different sports like football, basketball. We're working on a Battle of the Sexes soccer game, where the legendary women's soccer players against the legendary men, and other Battle of the Sexes sports that are appropriate. You can't do that with boxing, obviously, but you may be able to do it with basketball. You know what I mean? And then just create legendary events with legends that are fun, that will have a docu-series produced around it, building up to it. And it will always have some kind of charitable give back aspect to it as well. And then we're also working on something which is sort of like in an Olympic Olympic style format, if you will, where it'd be Legends Only League full of different competitions for like a weekend, and it might have, all kinds of competitions over that weekend covering all the sports. But, the idea is to do like quarterly events and at least start with quarterly and maybe 6 to 8 events past that after the next couple of years. But it's definitely something that you're going to see more of. I mean, you may not see Mike every time, but Mike definitely wants to do it. He wants to do this next event, and that's the plan right now. He's excited. He feels good. He's very satisfied what he did in the ring. He thought he accomplished everything he wanted to do. He thinks he's going to be even better. He thinks his timing is going to be even better. He's just excited about getting better. He's in there sparring with young, hungry guys that he says are kicking his ass in the sparring session. But he's enjoying it, and he's been getting better and better. And I saw the transition. And the thing about Mike, which is so unbelievable, when he got his ass kicked the first time sparring, he was sore, he was fucked up. Most people pull back, like, you know what? I'm 54. This ain't. He does it. He goes forward. He has to conquer it, and he did. And tribute to him. And I give a shout out to Roy Jones too. This was definitely difficult for Roy Jones. Even in an exhibition with bigger gloves, it was still a risk of him getting hurt. He said everything on Mike hurts him. He said, you bump into Mike, it hurts, So I definitely want to see what Roy wants to do next, and talk to a lot of these other fighters that may be having difficulties getting fights right now. We're willing to work with their promoters, make sure they eat as well. It's not no keep away. Boxing always been a sport where, two sides have to come together to eat together. And, we're still willing to do that. And, I'm talking to a few of my insider guys from different promotion companies that I had a rapport with from back in the day. And, we're going to work some of those things out as well.
No, yeah, you mentioned some great things, man, because it's funny, business takes away from a lot of great fights and a lot of great venues. And obviously, if you think about it, you think about some of the fights we wanted to see growing up, and it's like, why didn't it happen? And you start reading articles like, well, the two promoters couldn't get along, or this and that, or like, this happened. So it seems like you're doing it the right way.
Tom. It's frustrating to the fighters.
Yeah,
think about Terrence Crawford. Think how frustrated he has to be.
It's been a topic
of I've seen since Floyd Mayweather. A finisher different than Floyd Mayweather, and an athlete, ambidextrous. And he can't get the meaningful fight to make the money that he should get. And he's what 34, 35?
He's at 30, he's 33 years old. Yeah,
Something
man.
like that. And
Yeah.
I hate to see that, you know what I mean? And is it Bob Arum's fault? I don't know. You know, is it because they don't want to fight him? You know, he can't make a deal with Heyman. I don't know, but it's just sad to see, man.
You brought up a good point, or an interesting point as it concerns like how you guys went about promoting the fight. You know, it wasn't like the normal, like we would see whether it was Fox or ESPN or whoever promoting it, like, you know, here's the pay-per-view and but you guys went about it in a way where, I mean, you brought up the 3 last pay-per-view fights that have aired. And granted, like, we understand, you know, Mike alone has an aura that, and I made a post about this, like, before and after Mike, I don't believe there's been anybody that's had his aura, you know, for a lot of different reasons.
Show was produced, we could have did that show without Mike. It would have been no numbers without Mike. That's a fact.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's I mean, you guys went about it a different way, and it was still successful. But like, do you think, and you're bringing up like just the issues now, like particularly with Terrence Crawford, who's been like a topic on the show like every other week.
I bet.
But do you feel there's a point where boxing, and you had made mention of it, where like there's like an old way of doing things, and I read somewhere else too, you know, where some of the promoters just, I guess, not catching up to the times. But do you think like the route you guys are going as far as promoting, the way you went about promoting, is maybe a way of the future? You know, when you look at social media and even that last, what I noticed, because myself, ROD, and Train were talking about it like the week before, there was just a lot of hype behind it from people that like never talked to me about boxing, that were hitting me up like literally that week of like, hey man, you watching the fight? And a lot of it was like through social media, just stuff that they were seeing. So, I mean, do you see potentially boxing in general kind of like going in that direction as far as maybe doing things a new way?
I definitely would like to see it do that. The problem is, it's like you have a lot of guys holding on to things, and you have so many people with their hands in the pot. And you don't need a lot of them, you know. We're not a huge company, right? We're basically, it's just really me, Johnny Ryan Jr., Sophie Watts, Mike Tyson, and Kiki Tyson, right? That's Legends Only League, right? And then we have a bunch of people that come from Sophie Watts' massive companies that she has, that have joined us with PR, that have worked for, like, ran Pepsi and did the PR campaigns for top brands that you could think of, coming together and figuring out PR strategies to get the message out and to ultimately make people have an easy way to purchase the fight. Now, the fact that we picked Triller as the partner for this first one kind of allowed us to do things that we may not have been able to do had it been one of the more established networks that have put boxing programs on before, right? So we were able to develop something with Triller that may appear to be like produced differently. We had different lights. We had the producers that did the Super Bowl and all the HBO fights. We had directors from the HBO series of the past. What's the Floyd Mayweather 24/7?
24/7. Okay.
Exactly. So I mean, we put the pieces together and put the money to where the production, if someone did pay for the $49.99, they were entertained. And shame on everybody who wanted Mike Tyson to come out there and knock Roy Jones out. I mean, that's just savage. These guys are older. That's not what Mike was in there to do. Mike was in there to outbox Roy. And he wanted to prove that. And I'm not saying that he wasn't trying to hurt Roy, but I'm just saying if Mike would have had a different game plan, if he wanted to try to come out, it would have been smaller gloves. So it's an exhibition fight for a reason. Right. It's an exhibition fight because we care about Mike, we care about Roy, We want them to go in there and compete and come out of there safe. Right? That was the goal we wanted. And, you know, that would be the goal in the future. I don't think nobody wants to see Mike go in there and get hurt. I don't think he wants to see Mike go in there hurt someone in their 50s. You know, I don't think people want to see that. But I think people want to see Mike Tyson in shape, go in there and perform the way he did that night. I think that was special.
Well, look, I know everybody dusted off their VHS tapes, their DVD, or they went in YouTube to look at Mike Tyson. I even looked at, you know, Sheem. I even looked at some of the stuff that was trending, and to see Mike Tyson name trending like that was crazy. It was surreal, man, and it brought me back to like the 90s, man, when we were watching them, and we would just stop everything and just make sure that we got there in time, and it was good. Now, let me ask you this.
Sure.
You know, I know you only got a couple more minutes. I'm going to ask you a couple more things. Tell us, let's break up the monotony real fast. So,
okay,
I know you like, you know, you put me on the hot box a couple years ago. Time, watch this. I watch it. I listened to it on the way to work. What was your favorite episode of Hot Box?
That's a hard one, man. There's been so many good ones. One of my recent favorites was Little Boozy. I just thought the way Mike was almost like a psychiatrist trying to help a young man. And I just thought it was real deep. And Little Boozy thought it was real deep too, because he left afterwards, and he was really touched by it. He was affected by it. And also Mike's daughter came and pressed Boozy as well. So all that combined, that's probably one of my favorites.
Oh man. And I guess so give us like a little, so people know, because you also are involved in Tyson Ranch, so people understand that. Tell us a little bit about that in your own words. Give us a little quick synopsis about Tyson Ranch as well.
Yeah, basically Tyson Ranch is like a branding company that shows you the best. Like, we partner up with the best growers of cannabis and product makers of edibles and stuff. And we partner up with these guys and use Mike's branding power to get it on the shelves and sell. You know what I mean? It's very similar to what Tropicana does with oranges. You know, they're not farmers, but they buy their oranges from the best farmers, slap their label on it, and put it on the shelves to go. So it was a cool way to do it, to keep the license clean from Mike with his history and stuff, and to make it work with the laws that are currently in various states. You know, it's a tricky game. So it changes state by state. So, you know, you have to have lawyers on payroll to be able to. It's a tricky game, man, to say the least. But you know, we've been doing it for about 4 years now, and you know, we got some really big developments coming in that too as well. So, you know,
somebody asked me a while ago. They said, Ash is your friend. Ask him, is the toad real? Is what everything Mike's talk about? Is it really real? And I'm like, I'm not going to answer that question.
No,
so I might as well answer it.
I'll answer it. It is really real. It is. Listen, I remember the first time Mike did it, and I was scared as shit. He went in there with this shaman, and I don't know if you ever seen the door at Tyson Ranch, but it's this big steel door, like with an old school metal hatch that you could open, like a little peep door. And went in there, closed the door. I didn't go in there, and all I heard was yelling and screaming and shit moving. I was like, what the hell's going on in there? And he came out and he said, yo, I'm good. He said, I fought off my demons. I saw them and I won. I finally fought them. And it was some deep shit. He explained it to me. And after that day, he kind of changed in a way. Because if you actually look at the old hot boxing, the first few that we ever did, Mike is sitting there like a zombie. He's not even engaged. He's barely talking. He's halfway falling asleep. After the Toad, he's engaged. He's talking. He's deep. It's pretty amazing how the Toad kind of released maybe some of the whatever he was dealing with it kind of got rid of that in a way, and it's very real. He'll tell you it's very real.
And it's funny because everybody looks at Eben, they be like, "Yo, we like him too. Like he seemed mad cool. Like, tell us about Eben. How's he?"
Yeah, Eben is an ex-football player. He used to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was a tight end, and he was very passionate about marijuana. We did this summit about marijuana, and we saw Eben, and he was like leading the cause. And we just started talking. He started getting involved and started doing some stuff with Tyson Ranch. And then when we launched this, he was the dude that came in and was the co-host. Now we may go in a different direction. Matter of fact, we are going in a different direction. Season 3 is about to drop, and it looks like I'm going to try to get Super Zab Judah to be the new Evan, and so that I'm looking forward to that. And we'll probably start filming in the next 2 weeks.
Nice. I seen he has I think he was on Vlad with Zab. Then he was interviewing.
Yeah,
Zab.
Vlad had brought him by
a couple days ago. Yeah.
And then Zab was doing a lot of our like red carpet Zoom chats. We were doing live on the Legends Only League social media account. He was doing that for us, and we plan on using Zab in a lot of ways in the up and coming events as well.
It's funny. I actually logged on and listened to his live on Instagram, and he did a really good job. It was some people trying to be stupid, and he kind of spun those questions so well, man. He is really good at it, man. It's good to see people. Like, I remember the first time we heard Mike Tyson commentate Sheem, we was like, oh my goodness, like this guy really knows what he's. It was so shocking, but it was good to see him, like Andre Ward, and now even Zab Judah, kind of commentate. Even though they're boxers,
I love
lead the forum. It's good, man. It really is, and I like it a lot. Zab did a very good job.
Yeah,
he did. He did
a very good job. All right, before you go, Ash, I know you busy.
Spence Garcia.
There you go. I want to know now. You and I are both from Philly, so come on now, give us the truth. Let me give everybody this background. In 2013, and I'm gonna put it out here. Ash had said, "Yo, there's a guy up here. He's a monster." And he just gave Floyd work. And I said, who? And he said, Errol Spence. And I'm like, who's that? He was like, he went to the Olympics. Now I'm gonna rewind 1996. We used to play boxing video games. I remember Ash was like, Tom, there's a guy out here. His name is Floyd Mayweather. Oh. He just came from the Olympics. He's real good. And I was sitting here like, what? He was like, I'm telling you, he's the real deal. So now you fast forward 2013, he's like, here's Errol Spence Jr. And he gave Floyd work. So I just want to let you know that's how I found out about Errol Spence before everybody, because Ash told me. So my question to you, Ash, Errol Spence versus Danny Garcia, who's from the crib. I want you to give me the truth.
Sure. Let me just start by saying I didn't talk to you guys before this, but I called the Teo beating Lomachenko. I called that one. To everyone who talked to me, I told everyone what would happen. I said that Teo is a better boxer than people are giving him credit for, and he's going to be afraid to. Lomo's going to be afraid to engage with Teo, and Teo's going to be willing to get one. So I think that's how it went. But Lomo was very gun shy for most of that fight. But Spence Garcia, this is an interesting fight to me. I'm not one of those guys that think Garcia isn't a good fighter. I know he's not that beloved in Philly for some reason, you know what I mean? But I think Garcia is a tough guy to beat. I think he's tough to outbox, and I think he has power in both hands, and he can hurt you. And the one thing that worries me about Spence is that Spence can get hit. He's not clean in and out all the time, and he can get hit. And that's what makes it a very interesting fight. With that said, I take Spence in a decision, maybe even a stoppage. But if it's a stoppage, it's going to be because Danny is going all out trying to catch up, from being outpointed. But I could see it being a very tricky decision ugly kind of fight. I don't think it's going to be that pleasing. I think it's going to be an ugly kind of styles clashing kind of fight, which I'll give the edge to Spence. But I think it's going to be closer than a lot of people think. I don't think Spence is going to run through Garcia at all.
So let me ask you a question. Did your opinion change, Ash? You know, and Roberto, you guys, the next question. Did your opinion change because of the car accident? How did that play a role? Did that play a role in
I
your
mean, the car accident plays a role in this fight because it's his first one back, and he has a long layoff. This is the longest layoff he's had since he's been fighting. So that does play a factor. But I think he's overcome that. And I think, I don't really see that being too much of a factor. You got to worry about it. It is something that, we're discussing. But I think Spence is going to come out aggressive. And I think it's going to be up to Danny how aggressive he's going to match that. If he matches that, it's going to be fireworks. If he doesn't, I think it's going to turn into like one of them boring style clashing kind of fights that may not be that pleasing to the audience.
Yeah, it's one of those fights, man, that I mean, I think the consensus from what I've seen is a lot of the eyes are on Errol Spence because of, like we were just mentioning, the accident. This is his was like a 14-month layoff. Because prior to that, they were gonna fight. Like this was supposed to happen in January prior to COVID happened. Striking here, and I think all of us collectively were looking at this like. I mean, you brought up a good point. Like Danny's not the easiest guy to beat. Like I mean, he's lost to Porter and Thurman. Some would argue the Herrera fight too, but Danny's never been like steamrolled, and he's never been like thoroughly outboxed. Where when the fight's over, you're like, oh yeah, Danny clearly lost.
Right.
But Spence was that guy. I think a lot of us were like, well, this is probably the guy. But the ironic part is like some of the intrigue does have to do with what Spence are we getting? Because I'm of the belief if it's the same Spence from before the accident, I mean, I'm like with you. I think it's either a decision or a late stoppage.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at the last fight he had with Porter, was that pleasing to the eyes?
Yeah, I mean, it was a rough fight. And to your point,
styles clashing.
Styles sometimes don't make good fights, but to your point, like there were, and when you were mentioning Spence at times, it tends to kind of just be there longer than he should. And he got hit with a lot of like clean shots from Porter, who's never been like
that's what I'm saying.
A tactician per se, as far as like landing clean punches, but he landed like more than I think we were expecting going into that 12th round, right? And then he gets the knockdown and everything. But
that's what concerns me about Spence a little bit. I didn't really have that concern, as he was coming up, but as the competition is starting to get more tense, and he's fighting against hungrier fighters. It's a concern. It's not a concern with Terrence Crawford, right? I watch Terrence Crawford in another way. I see that as a flawless fighter. I see it as somebody that's going to find a way to finish it. That's, if you're beating him, he's going to find a way. He reminds me of Floyd a lot of ways, with more of a finishing nastiness to him, but people forget that Floyd would finish you too. If you ran from Floyd, he'd stalk you. Floyd ain't gonna let you just run from him. He'll come get you. So yeah, man. I think it's going to be one of those ugly fights, but I give Spence an edge.
So Ash, before you go, and I appreciate it, is there anything else you want to say? Anything else you want to plug in, or anything else you want to?
Sure, I just appreciate you guys for supporting it. It's good to see you guys are still doing this, and let's try to get this this podcast, a goal to take it to the next level, and be like a premier podcast of boxing, and let's get you some more guests. Let's get some more.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Let's get some more podcasts. I think now's the time. So definitely, man. I enjoy doing this. I don't do it with anybody. This is the only podcast I've ever done, and I don't do a lot of press either. I did like one press I did it with Josh Peters from USA Today. It's the only press I did, and it's not really my thing, but it's fun. I mean, this feels like we just talking boxing.
Yeah, man. That's
but definitely want to come back, and discuss the next event when I have more details. I like to do that.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
let's do that, and then we'll get y'all guys in the PR campaign of guests rotating.
Let us know.
You know what I'm saying? We'll do that. Absolutely.
And Aj, tell everybody I said hi. Give your family my regards.
I sure will.
I know your mom, she follows us, man, and that's my lady. And tell Kiki I said hi, and your dad. Tell everybody I said hello, please.
Absolutely, man. And let's see what happens, man. I'll be texting you, and we'll see what this fight do, man. I'll be real curious, and I'll be curious to see what the numbers do as well.
Yeah, good point too. Good
Paying
point on that
attention to
too.
the numbers right now,
for sure, for sure.
What if we leave like this? Leaving this note. Wouldn't it be a shame if your favorite boxers can't outdo all that trash you were talking about? And the biggest pay-per-view selling event is that 2-minute pillow fighting that they've been talking about, quote, air quotes, that everybody been trashing. What if that's the highest selling pay-per-view event in COVID? Imagine what it would have did if COVID wasn't here. I'm just leaving y'all with that, because your favorite fighters, I would guarantee, cannot produce those numbers that were produced last week. I guarantee.
When you talk about Floyd and Terrence Crawford,
I'm talking about whoever
Floyd
you want to talk about. Let's talk about anybody. I don't think those numbers that came out last week that y'all did, I don't think did anybody do anything close to that, Roberto, this year?
No.
That's my point.
Me and Train brought that up. When we were hearing about the potential. This wasn't official yet, but me and Train said this. We're like, yo, this could easily, because we already saw what was on the horizon, like for what was out, and we knew Spence Danny was happening, Tank, and we heard this. We're like, yo, is it really out of the realm that this is going to outsell all those fights? So
yeah,
it ain't a shock to me, man.
Not. I don't want to discredit those guys in any way.
No, yeah, absolutely not.
I think what it is, I think it's more that, unfortunately, the promoters and the gridlock in boxing is not allowing these guys to get the fights that fans are going to want to see.
You're right.
And then when you try to sell something at $80 of something that is more of a warm-up fight,
right?
Fans are not feeling that, and they'll rather just wait, or they just won't tune in. So I think if they could just come to control the expenses, get the amount of people out of these guys' pockets, find a way to make these fights happen, Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence will do over $1 million buys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Tank versus Teo would do over $1 million buys. So I think boxing fans want to see great fights, but then I think boxing also has to reach over to the other mass audience, like we attempted to do, and pull them into the sport as well as going after the UFC, as well as why we had a UFC commentator along with a boxing, and we had YouTubers, and we had artists. We're trying to bring everything together so we could give these young pay-per-view guys a chance to really, make the money they should be making. They're all great fighters. All these fighters we talked about are great young fighters, and they need to make these fights to create these guys so they can make the money they deserve,
Right, absolutely. And that's something we've been preaching on this show for a minute. It's the fighters become fighters based on the matchups. We put these dudes up here, all the legends, but
there's no Holyfield without Tyson.
Right? Exactly. Like the matchups are always what make the fighters, and then eventually, either one of them or both of them become stars. And that's just how it is. But to your point, the fights got to get made. You can't. To your point, you can't do an $80 pay-per-view and have it be like a 5-6 to 1 underdog kind of deal. You know what I'm saying? Like, so. But man.
Well, thank you, fellas. I really appreciate it, man.
Time, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
man. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Talk
man.
soon, guys.
Yes,
Enjoy
sir.
the fight.
Yes, sir. You too.
All
you
right.
too.
Peace.
So that is our show, man. I appreciate Azim Spencer hopping on. Shot the train who couldn't make it tonight. R.O. Diggity got the hoodie in South Florida, so you know the weather's straight over here. You're all messed up.
I put my heat on yesterday, just so everybody know, and my fire alarm, my smoke detectors went off.
Oh man,
I never had anything like this. This is weird to me, man.
Welcome to welcome to Florida in the wintertime.
Yeah,
pretty much, and no fireplaces, but
yeah. And I appreciate you, man. Appreciate it. Was great having Ash on here.
Yeah,
and
man, yeah, for sure. He did a lot of insight. I mean, you know, we're gonna see. We haven't seen the last of Mike Tyson, so you know, for a lot of the fans out there, man, you know, if you enjoyed this past weekend, it won't be the last time. There we go. There we go.
Yeah.
Yo, so before we go, follow us at GYGB Boxing on Instagram. Appreciate all the follows, like, subscribe on YouTube, Facebook.com/GYG Boxing. Appreciate again all the follows, all the listens. Spotify, just search GYGB War Report Show. We're all over the place, man. So we'll be back next week. We're gonna wait a minute. So I didn't get your prediction for this weekend. We were like doing the preview. I didn't get your prediction.
All right. So we got a minute, and I'll tell you this. I agree with everything that Ash is saying. I don't think we can say it anymore. And obviously, you know, he did mention a point. So it goes back. Why is Danny? We got to figure out why Danny's not, you know, not as beloved in Philadelphia. But, you know, again, I'm going to pick Errol Spence to beat him. I just feel like that experience is going to come in, that dog is going to come in. But like you said, you know, he was talking about Porter, and you talked about Porter. That is a concern because I think that Danny his inactivity at times is counterpunching. So, you know, and Spence has gotten touched. So, I mean, that could be interesting as well. But I think that he's just going to be more active than Danny. That's just really what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, I like Spence in the fight. I'm just still, you know, my curious eye is going to just be keeping an eye on him as far as, I mean, because one thing I forgot to mention too is, you know, we can argue Danny might punch for punch be the hardest puncher Spence has faced. You know, not to say Danny's knocking everybody out, but at least at 147 compared to Mikey and Porter, Danny has shown like he could lay you out with either one punch or you know, stagger you again. But it really just comes down to what kind of Spence we're getting, man. Because if it's the Spence of old, he's gonna make it really hard for a Danny who, like, to your point, has a habit of not doing enough. They're saying that, you know, they brought a new strength and conditioning coach. They're up in the stamina. I mean, does that make a difference? We'll see. But if we see the Errol Spence of old, man, I mean, I think we're gonna have. I want to pick the safe pick and say by decision because Danny's not the easiest out, but I feel Spence, he has something to prove here. You know, did the accident take some mileage off his career? You know, I mean, hey, listen, man. Crawford made a statement last month, and if you don't think Spence is going in there with trying to make his own statement, like, come on. Both of these guys are trying to one up the other, you know. So, but we'll see, man. I'm excited this weekend. Fox pay-per-view or Fox PBC Sports pay-per-view this Saturday. We'll be back next week talking about the show or talking about the fight. And if we are any closer to a Crawford Spence fight, if Spence wins, but you know, we got to get past this Saturday. So, any case, follow us. All the links in the description below, and we are out. Peace.